At least 27 people are dead, entire neighborhoods are gone, and hundreds have fled their homes. What started as a routine wildfire season in southern Europe has exploded into a catastrophe. Civil protection units are overwhelmed as flames leap highways and force urgent evacuations from Catania to Andalusia, and it gets worse with thousands of hectares lost and evidence pointing to possible negligence or arson. Prosecutors have opened criminal investigations across several regions. How did a predictable risk ignite a regional emergency, and who, if anyone, saw it coming? The Rossi family's ordeal began before dawn when flames cut off both ends of their street in Marina di Portigliano. Smoke poured through the windows as Andrea Rossi dialed 112 at 4:12 UTC, her voice shaking as she told the operator, "We are trapped. Smoke is 2 meters high. Please send help." For nearly 7 hours, the family of 5, 2 parents, their teenage son, and twin daughters waited as the fire front surged out of the inland pine forest, blocking every paved escape. Their car was useless. The main highway, SS 18, was already choked with stalled vehicles and embers. Inside, temperatures climbed, oxygen thinned. The youngest, Sophia, began coughing uncontrollably. Andrea's husband, Marco, stuffed towels under the doors, dousing them with water from the bathtub. Neighbors pounded on the back wall, yelling for anyone left to move toward the old mountain trail, but the back path was already rimmed with burning brush, and the sky above roared with the sound of approaching helicopters. At 10:57 UTC, a rescue crew aboard a Eurocopter AS-532 hovered above the Rossi house. With flames less than 30 meters away, a firefighter was lowered by rope, harnessing the children first, then Andrea, then Marco. The family was airlifted out one by one, their skin and hair singed, hands shaking from heat and fear. They landed at Hospital San Giorgio in Catanzaro at 11 UTC, where triage sheets recorded second-degree burns covering an average of 12% of their bodies. The Rossi survived, but their home did not. For almost 7 hours, they lived inside the fire's jaws, waiting, hoping, and clinging to each other as the world outside turned to ash. At 11:45 Coordinated Universal Time, a wall of flame roared across the SS 106 coastal highway outside Catania. The fire did not stop for concrete or traffic. It launched burning debris over 4 lanes, igniting brush and parked cars on the far side. In seconds, the only escape route for thousands living along the waterfront vanished. Civil protection commanders issued an immediate evacuation order. Sirens blared. Automated alerts hit every phone in the district, but nothing moved fast enough. Nearly 800 residents, most from the crowded resort blocks in the old fishing quarter, tried to flee on foot. Some carried toddlers wrapped in wet towels. Others pushed elderly relatives in wheelchairs or loaded pets into shopping carts. The air stung with smoke so thick it turned noon into dusk. Emergency buses jammed the main roundabout, unable to move as ash rained down. Commanders redirected evacuees to the municipal gymnasium and 2 makeshift shelters in school auditoriums, but capacity filled within minutes. Overflow crowds spilled onto the athletic fields, clutching plastic water bottles, waiting for registration and medical checks as ambulance crews triaged burns and smoke inhalation cases. Inside the command post, radio traffic spiked. Every available officer was rerouted to crowd control and supply runs. Volunteers handed out surgical masks, but stocks ran low within the hour. The Civil Protection Bulletin logged the breach and mass movement as the single largest forced extraction in the city's recent history. But this is where it gets worse. As night fell, the fire line advanced toward the next suburb, forcing commanders to consider cross-district evacuations for the first time in decades. Now the crisis widens. As flames sweep through Italy's southern coast, emergency coordinators across the Mediterranean brace for a new wave of destruction. In Andalusia, Spain, fire crews confront a disaster measured not in city blocks but in square kilometers. The ERUPT situation report confirms nearly 9,650 hectares burned in just 48 hours. That is an area larger than Manhattan lost to smoke and ash. Drought has left the hills brittle and brown, and every wind gust sends embers racing over containment lines. At the same moment, the resort town of Mojakar faces a forced exodus. Sirens echo off empty hotel corridors as more than 1,500 people, tourists and locals alike, are ordered to evacuate. The Spanish Ministry of Interior describes the operation as the largest single displacement in Almeria's recent history. Buses clog the coastal highway, and families with suitcases and pets crowd the sidewalks waiting for directions from overwhelmed police. Regional fire commanders coordinate by radio, but resources are stretched thin. Water bombers and helicopters are diverted from one emergency to the next, while ground crews scramble to protect homes at the edge of the fire zone. With multiple fronts burning across national borders, local responders warn they are reaching the breaking point. But this is where it gets worse. The fires are no longer isolated incidents. They are synchronized disasters, overwhelming civil protection systems from Spain to Italy. Scientists warn this is part of a broader pattern. The Mediterranean is now a tinderbox, and the capacity to respond is being tested like never before. Across southern Europe, the atmosphere itself became an accelerant. Meteorological models from the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts, known as ECMWF, documented a heat anomaly of plus 5 degrees Celsius above the 30-year average, shattering seasonal records from France to Greece. Drought maps showed the standardized precipitation evapotranspiration index, called SPEI, at plus 2.1, an extreme reading that signals months of rainfall deficit and relentless evaporation. In regions like Calabria and Andalusia, soil moisture fell so low that even deep-rooted pines withered, turning forests into powder-dry fuel. And Dr. Leah Moreau, a senior meteorologist at Meteo France, explained that the Mediterranean basin is experiencing a perfect storm with persistent high pressure over North Africa, a blocking low in the west, and a heat dome that will not budge. This is not normal for February, with humidity plunging below 12% and winds gusting past 30 knots. The fire danger index reached its maximum. Under these conditions, a single spark, whether from lightning, a power line, or human activity, could unleash a firestorm that no amount of preparation could fully contain. Scientists now warn this is not an isolated event. The climate is primed for disaster, and each year the odds grow worse. Emergency lines in southern Europe were overwhelmed as 4,372 calls poured in within a day, 12% drop before operators could answer. Wait times stretched, while reports of blocked roads and missing people mounted. Firefighters arriving to meet the flames found hydrant pressure in key zones had fallen below 1 bar. Tanker crews, unable to refill, watched as outdated pipes and overworked pumps failed under demand. A flaw long known but never fixed. Italy's request for 6 water bombers at 8:40 UTC brought just 3 EU aircraft by 13:15, leaving fire corridors to widen unchecked. Sentinel-2 satellite data showed NDVY fuel loads below 0.3 across 65% of the burn zone, a landscape ready to ignite. Building audits revealed 40% of coastal homes in Calabria and Sicily had non-fire resistant roofs, turning embers into house fires within minutes. Hospitals like San Giorgio diverted 28 ambulances as occupancy hit 96%, forcing burn victims to wait in hallways or travel miles for care. Officials are now investigating the power line failure near San Pietro di Lunata, a single point of ignition that may have set off a chain reaction across Calabria. The public prosecutor released a file naming a high-voltage line owned by Enel Distribuzione as the likely source. Maintenance records show the last inspection on January 15th flagged corrosion on insulators, but the needed repairs were never carried out. At 0958 UTC, the utility's SCADA system logged a short circuit 12 minutes before the firestorm swept through the area. 1 minute later, at 0959, highway CCTV captured a bright arc flash at the same pole, matching the outage time to the second. Forensic teams from the National Institute for Forensic Science sealed burned conductor fragments and scorched soil in evidence bag 2026 CL01. The chain of custody is intact with all samples logged and awaiting metallurgical analysis. Prosecutors have filed charges of involuntary manslaughter and criminal negligence against Enel's regional managers. The preliminary hearing is set for April 15th in Catanzaro. The outcome remains uncertain, but for the families who lost everything, the search for accountability is no longer abstract. It is personal, and now it is in the hands of the court. Criminal investigations may uncover specific causes, but the core threat remains. Climate-amplified wildfires are outpacing old defenses across southern Europe. Infrastructure gaps and extreme weather turn each spark into a regional emergency. The next ignition is only a matter of time. How ready are we anywhere for what's coming?